Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for another episode of the Memories of Plymouth, an initiative by the Plymouth Historical Society, and we are closing in to the end of our 5th year of chatting with people in Plymouth and the surrounding areas. From the very beginning, our goal was to collect and preserve the stories, the memories of folks who live in Plymouth and all the surrounding communities that we have. And today, our guest is Sally Dole Harris. Thank you for joining us.
I'm glad to be here.
We have a series of questions that we would like to ask you just to help identify who you are if there's somebody in the community that may not know you. You ready?
Okay, let's go.
You've got it. State your full name, please.
I'm Sarah Dole Harris, better known as Sally. I was born in Campton on Main Street in the family home in 1936.
1936. A great year. What happened in 1936? Have you ever thought about that?
I was born.
Before?
What more do you want?
No more. No more. All right. So Sarah with an H?
No.
Sarah.
S-A-R-A.
All right. Let's do that.
Very good in the first grade for 8 letters. Sarah Dole.
That's a good one. That is a good one. You think about the young children that we have today, and their names sometimes are not spelled the way we're used to spelling them, and the difficulty if it's a long
And
name,
they go
unusual.
forever, yeah. No.
Would you mind sharing your parents' names?
Roland Dole, better known as Tom, and Lavinia Lovett. And Roland was born in Campton. My mother was born in Center Harbor. Both went to New Hampton Literary Institute.
New Hampton Literary Institute. Can you share with the audience what that was?
That's the New Hampton School.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
It was the New Hampton Literary Institute, yeah.
Interesting. All right. What occupations did Mom and Dad have?
My father worked in the mill, and my mom was mainly a school teacher. My dad died when I was 4, so my mother raised us, really.
Wow.
And most of that time she was a school teacher. She also sold Spencer corsets. She was a town clerk, you know, anything to get some money because she had 4 kids.
I was just going to ask you the number of siblings that you have, brothers and sisters. Would you mind sharing?
I had a brother John and a sister Jean, and my brother Dave. Dave and I were 3 years apart, and John and Jean were 10 years apart from us, so it was almost 2 families.
I would say that too, 2 families with that spread in between.
But it did her a lot of good to have the younger kids, you know, because when the older ones were gone, she had somebody else.
So it was a struggle, I would say, having a single mom.
At that time,
Yes, very much so, very much so.
Yeah.
And maybe the brothers and sisters, you had to do some extra things to keep everything going smoothly.
Yeah, my brother Dave and I were the janitors of the schoolhouse.
Oh my gosh.
$40 a month, 20 for each one of us. But we never got allowances, you know, that was.
And as a janitor, what might you do for duties?
Excuse me, I swept, and Dave got up at 5 o'clock and stoked the wood furnace.
Wow.
You know, I don't think we had to shovel. I can't remember. It was a long walkway, and I was trying to think. But we, you know, maintained it. And my mom was the teacher, and she very nicely cleaned the johns. And we did have flush johns, and the other schools in town had outhouses.
Outhouses. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
What school would you have gone to?
Campton Village.
And there were 2, am I correct? And 2 schools of identical built, one at Beebe River, and the village school was located where?
Right next to Campton Cupboard.
There you go. There you go.
And there were 2 rooms, 1st through 4 grades, and 5 through 8.
Okay. And Mom taught those children?
5 through 8.
5 through 8.
And at one point she had 52 kids.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I wish I could give you the stats right now of what an average class is, but it's much, much larger than that. Yeah. Wow. Lower than that. Let's do it that way. Wow. 50-something children. Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Let's talk a little bit about your education, if we can, elementary school, junior high school, and then we'll move on to secondary high school.
Well, of course, I went to the Campton Grammar School
Mm-hmm.
for 8 years. Then I went to Plymouth High when it was Plymouth High School for 4. And then I went to Plymouth Teachers College and graduated in 1956.
56. Let's go back to elementary school if we can. Some of the teachers that you might have had, and along with it, then I'm going to say, so you can think about it, your best subject, maybe one that wasn't so great.
In grade school. Ella Batchelder. You know Ella Bill Batchelder's mother.
Mrs. Batchelder,
Yeah.
absolutely.
She was my first, well, I guess she wasn't. I guess Miss Lunt was my first teacher because Miss Lunt taught me I'm left-handed, and she was diligent that I write this way, not this way.
Left-handed, me too.
Yeah. And then I had Ella Batchelder, and then I had my mom.
Wow, wow.
Which presented some problems and not some problems. But
Let's expand a little bit on that.
well, you know, we tried to keep it pretty neutral, and I think I called her Mrs. Dole in school. But I remember one time, and we always played baseball at noontime out back, and she was normally out there as an umpire and, you know, an old referee sort of. And I was just a little kid, and anyway, I hit the ball, and I hit it over the infielder's head, which was an accomplishment. And I didn't even run to first base. I turned around and ran into school to tell my mom that I hit the ball. So she became my mom at that point, not the teacher.
That's adorable.
You know? And I remember that. That was quite an achievement for me.
So did you have a subject that you really enjoyed during elementary school?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think, you know, it was a blend of everything. And I think I like geography and history probably, but I don't really have one that
All right.
was outstanding.
Anything you had to work at?
No.
Okay. Okay.
No.
Good student, huh?
Yeah, well, in fact, my mother always said I was in with a bunch of dummies. But I skipped the 4th grade, went from the 3rd grade to the 5th grade.
Way back when? That's
Yeah.
highly unusual, is
Yeah.
it not?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but that was Mrs. Batchelder, and she said, you know, she had to work with the others so much that I ought to move ahead.
So Mrs. Batchelder taught what grade at Campton?
Well, she taught 1st through 4.
All of them, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then she comes to Plymouth years later and becomes the elementary kindergarten teacher.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, it's nice to put that in perspective.
So I think I had her maybe 2 or 3 years in the first 4 grades. Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
We move into high school a little bit. Where did you go for junior high?
Campton,
Okay.
8 grades.
All right. Memories from Campton?
No.
7th and 8th grade?
No, except, you know, we were right in the same class. This is kind of a neat picture, if I can find it. I brought this, and this is Bounce,
Oh, so we're going to show the audience here. It's a picture of
the 5th through 8th grade. I
5th
think.
through 8th grade. And if you look closely, folks, you will see there is a dog there.
And that dog came to school every single day with his master.
Wow.
And he even went to graduation and got a diploma.
Was there a reason for this, that the dog
No.
was with it?
No.
And it
He
was
ju-
acceptable?
Yeah, that's the thing that I think nowadays they'd be having a fit about it.
And it looks like there's a teacher in the background
That's
as well.
my mom.
Oh my gosh, so we'll have to look again. So Mom is in the back. All right, are you in this picture?
I'm over here cut out.
Did you hear that, everybody? She's cut out. This is great. All
So-
right, nice picture. Interesting lights.
Yeah.
The old-fashioned
yeah,
lights that we
yeah.
can't see very much of. So
Yeah.
that's good. We're in high school now, so we go to Plymouth High School.
And,
Some of the teachers you had there.
well, I had Mr. Elliott, who I liked very much in science, biology, and chemistry. And I think probably Mr. Keach, who was the headmaster.
Oh, a principal.
Yeah.
Yeah, headmaster. Goes back and forth, folks.
Yeah. And he was he and I had a close relationship. I got along very well with him. And then I never had Miss Riley in class, but she was always there, and she was kind of Mr. Keach's right-hand lady.
Go-to.
And she always appeared when you didn't want a teacher to appear.
Oh,
You know?
that's funny.
You know what I mean? She seemed to be Johnny on the spot. So
I've done a little bit of research, not enough yet, on Miss Riley. It appears to me that she went from the Plymouth Teachers College directly to the high school. I may be incorrect, so the audience can tell me different. And I'm wondering if she's the one that may have started yearbooks. I don't know why in my head, but when I go back and what she had taught at the time, and I'm trying to do the history on yearbooks, how far back do they go? What was the first yearbook that was produced? Historical Society has a couple copies, and I know when I interviewed Charlie Durgan, he definitely did not have a yearbook, but did have a high school class picture with everybody there.
yeah,
Did you have one of those as well?
no,
All right, all
No.
right.
we had a yearbook, definitely.
You definitely. And what year was that?
52,
52. Charlie was much earlier than
Yeah.
that.
because Mary was in my class.
Mary Durgan was in your class. What Charlie did for me, he took the one picture of all of the kids. We went through it, it took a few days, and he would give me the name and what town they came from. The idea was, again, all of these surrounding communities, towns, fed into the one high school that we had. And then he shared something about every one of them. So I'm doing this for several hours, and it was fun.
Yeah,
So the history of the yearbook, I'd like to know more about, and also if Agnes Riley had a part in it. And you're right, she was an institution.
yeah,
She was always there,
yeah,
because I can talk to generations afterwards and before me, and they would say the same thing. Oh yeah, Miss Riley.
yeah.
Hmm.
And I never, as I say, I never had her in class, but
Always there.
always there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Going to high school, there were extracurricular activities that were held after class. Did you have an opportunity to participate in any of them?
Yeah, I played a lot of sports. Sports
Okay.
was my thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how my mom did it, because Dave, who was 3 years ahead of me, was a 3-sport. He was a good athlete. And we always got to stay for practice, and we always got home, you know.
Somehow you got home.
Yeah,
And with my interviews, a lot of people could not. If they were outside the
Yeah.
Plymouth area, they said there was difficulty getting a ride.
mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yeah.
And you were able to.
Yeah.
What were some of the sports that they had then?
Well, we had softball and basketball.
Okay.
That was just about all the girls had.
Mm-hmm.
And then it really was a strain on women to play sports.
Is
You know
that
what
right?
they said.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had intramural.
Oh,
But I never played field hockey till I got to Plymouth Teachers.
okay.
But I think we had skiing, but it was outside of the high school. We had the Frontenac Ski Club.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. No, I haven't heard of that. Oh my gosh. So Frontenac Ski Club. I'm going to have to write that one down.
That's the badge.
And talk about the badge.
Well, it was designed, I don't know who designed it, but we had that as on our parkas, and it was a town-related organization. Fred and Doris Speed.
Oh, Speed. Why do I remember Speed? Gasoline station?
Well, no, he hauled the gasoline in. He was a wholesaler
All right.
that brought
all
it
right.
into town.
That's why. Speed.
And then Andy Brands, at that time, was the district ranger, and he was very active in it.
Oh, I'll have to do that.
And we had our meetings over at the base of Frontenac. You know, Frontenac came down on the west side, Wendy's came down on the east side.
Right.
And we used to go on weekends. I can remember going to Belmont, going to Bristol, going to Tilton for meets.
Wow.
There were not at all anything to do with the high school.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we went. And in fact, I think I have a picture here that is going to gloat a little bit. That's me with my trophy.
Let's see if okay, it's got to
And
go
that's
with me.
and that's Pete Smith.
All right.
And Peter Smith's father was Elwin in the Plymouth Bank.
Elwin Smith.
And Blanche was his grandmother.
Uh-huh.
They both worked in the Plymouth Guaranty Savings Bank.
And you've had this picture for how many years?
Oh my goodness. Well, it had to be prior to 52.
52, and I'm trying to think of where you are. You're
Right
at
in
the
front of
Common, and it looks like the backdrop is where Wolfson's is now and where you eventually went to work.
Right.
Oh my gosh, because the building behind where Wolfson's used to be a combo of two banks.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Nice. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. Some people have said, we thank goodness for certain people that just did these kinds of activities.
Yeah.
Probably didn't get paid, but felt it was really important.
And we had weekend races on Wendy's for several seasons, and they sponsored them.
You and I are going to write a story. I know it's something I haven't heard of, so I'm assuming maybe some of the audience has not either. And I wonder how long this has existed for.
Well, I can tell you it existed for at least 3 or 4 years.
All right.
Excuse me. While I was, high school age,
That's
and
great.
maybe a little bit before.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what happened after I went to college
All right.
because I didn't participate.
Sure.
But
No,
we'd have quite a good-sized number of,
this is great.
not a lot of women, but a lot of men would, the young men, the young boys. So it was pretty good.
Favorite subject, perhaps, in high school?
I think, again, history with Frank Landry.
Landry. These are a few names. I knew Keach, because does Keach end up being, Mr. Keach ends up being the headmaster, the principal? Can you do that?
He was the headmaster when I was there, yeah. Yeah.
All right, yeah. Some of the names are different for me. And was there a subject that you didn't care for? I've already asked you that at the lower level, but now at the upper level?
Maybe Spanish.
Spanish. So you had languages. Was it required?
No,
All right,
but I took a college prep course, so I had Spanish. And
that's great. When we and I had chatted before, we talked about canteen, and that's another story that we're trying to develop from the perspective of the Historical Society. Do you remember that, chatting about canteen?
yeah,
And that was part of my growing up, and I thought it was really important that we had a place. Ours was on Saturday night, probably after a fall football game, but it was a place to come and dance, and
where did you hold it?
we had it at the bottom of Spear. So I'm trying to where would you have held yours?
Well, we held it in the Congregational Church Vestry for a while, and then they held it, and I don't even know if the building's there, but Plymouth High was here. There was a building in between and then the college.
Memorial.
And we held it in the basement of that building, and the ping pong tables were on the first floor.
So the basement and first floor is table
And
tennis.
that building wasn't used at that point.
Oh my gosh, it
I
wasn't?
I don't
Oh.
think. Well, that's where we had our hot lunch.
All right.
At the end of my high school time, they served a hot lunch, and we had to go across over there.
So to our audience, if you have any background on canteen, from your memories, was it located at the bottom of Memorial, which was our junior high building? It was totally loaded classes above and bottom. That would be fun to find out, and would like to commend the people that were organizing it and took part in it. And when was it held? On Saturdays? Yes,
Saturday evening.
Saturday evening. Someplace for the kids to go.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
I think that's pushes us
Yeah.
to do those kinds of events for us students.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to know they're safe and they're okay and they're having a good
They
time.
always had dancing and ping pong, and I think there were card tables and maybe some soda and light refreshments.
In my time, it would be just dancing.
Really?
We had the gymnasium itself. There was a lot of good food, if I remember correctly, so we want to thank all those parents that were
Yeah.
part. There was committees that got together, and it would be comprised of parents, and there were students on the committees as well to probably figure out what what was acceptable
Yeah.
for music to be played. That's a piece of history we'd like to document if we could. That's nice. Thank you for doing that. Good memory. Good
Yeah,
memory.
we had officers There were kids, president, vice president.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There were students. Yeah.
You worked during your life?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. All right.
I went to work at 10, washing dishes up to the Thornton Farm kitchen.
Wow.
Remember that?
I sure do. When we drive by, we wave.
And I worked there one time I was 10, well, till I graduated from college, waiting table.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went back and would work weekends, and, you know, and then they closed. And so that was my summer work.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I mean, my mother had to get me there and get me home.
Transportation was an issue.
Yeah, and but
I'll put you on the spot and we can pass. Who owned that restaurant?
Louis and Marion Hanson,
Hanson.
and her family owned the Pilgrim Inn up in North Woodstock.
Oh, all right, all right.
And her mother did all the deep fat frying and that preparation, and she did, you know, the regular cooking, and he was the host.
Must have been a chatter person. You
Yeah,
like to meet
yeah,
people?
yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice combination.
And as I say, I started doing dishes, and then I started waiting on table for breakfast, which is the hardest meal to wait table on.
Breakfast.
Yeah.
And why so?
Well, everybody wants something different, and then everybody wants 2 or 3 cups of coffee, and you know, and then I worked full time, and you know, it was good money for back then. And then I had to take a summer off because I had to, for my college preparation, I had to intern in a business situation. So that's when I worked at the Pemigewasset National Bank in the Wolfen building, and I worked a summer there.
Let's backtrack. We finished high school. We're just going to college now. This is Plymouth Teachers College. Thank you. All right, it's Plymouth Teachers College.
350 kids.
My mouth is open. 350 kids. What years would those have been approximately?
Well, I graduated in 56.
56, 52 to 56
Yeah.
approximately, yeah.
Yeah.
350 kids.
And mostly New Hampshire kids. I mean, a lot of kids out of the North Country. Gorham, Lancaster, Berlin.
Well, if they wanted to go to an institution of higher learning, where could they have gone at that time?
Yeah, right.
So it was probably our locale in the North Country.
Yeah.
Wow. And what was your field?
Business education.
Business education. Can you remember any teachers from that?
Oh, certainly I can. Judge Ernst.
Wow. Wow.
Robert Ernst.
All right.
Yeah, he was a.
I wish I was doing this with you right now, Sally. Honest to goodness. Taking
He
notes.
was.
Wow.
He was one of my favorite teachers. Very solid, and a lot of people didn't like him, but I really liked him. And then there was Norton Bagley.
Wow. Wow.
And Dr. Kinney, who ran the United Nations.
Absolutely. He started the United Nations, if I remember correctly. Probably 51, 52. Professor Hogan took over after that, I believe.
Yeah.
And then I remember reading something about he left after so many years, a few years he was at Plymouth. Wow.
So,
You had a
you
nice
know, I
group.
remember them. Yeah.
Favorite subject there during those 4 years? Something that stands out?
Probably accounting.
All
That
right.
was because it was Judge Ernst.
Did you have a best friend when you were at college?
Yeah, well, I did for 2 years, and then she transferred to Plymouth, to Boston. She was a little Italian girl out of Berlin.
Wow.
But I did have 2 best friends in high school. One was Helen Whittemore, and one was Clara Sandman. And I kept, Clarice and I, Clarice had a sister in Rumney, so she came back occasionally, and we'd always have lunch together. Helen married a doctor from Mary Hitchcock. She was a nurse. And they went to Maine, and she had 5 kids, so she was busy. I never heard a lot. We had reunions periodically for our high school class, and I'd see her there. But I had, I think, the girl that came from Berlin and at college, and then there was another girl that came from Somersworth. In fact, it's Joni Savage that the visitor center is named for.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Gene Savage's wife. Good man, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Reunions you just brought up. Are there high school reunions for you folks now? Have you been to one? Have they had one? Not counting the pandemic.
The last one we had was, let's see, 52. We were due to have one last year. 52. But we've had them every 5 years.
Every 5 now.
Yeah.
Combo with other classes, or is
No,
strictly by yourself?
no.
So the numbers are getting a little smaller
Yeah.
each time? Yeah.
I missed the last one because that's the time my husband had his stroke. But we were getting about 30 kids.
That's a
We
lot.
had good
That's
reunions.
great.
And so I think probably next year, let's see, that'll be 22. Yeah, so that'll be a 5-year period.
After
So,
that length of
sure.
time, people don't care anymore. They just want to get together.
yeah,
That which is, yeah, kind of
so
neat.
we'll see.
Yeah.
But we didn't have, the last one we had, they wanted to come back in 2 years.
Beautiful.
And we didn't do
Okay.
it, so.
It's a lot of work to prepare,
Yeah,
but there are some people that very much want to get together. I was emailing so-and-so this morning from St. Louis, and he said such a beautiful thing. He said, he's quite ill, and he said, my memories of Rumney and Plymouth, I'd love to move back if all goes as planned next year. It seems, I'm sure it's changed. People are no longer there, but my memories are so strong about the area, he can't wait.
yeah.
Which was a nice thing to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was nice. Let's go back to work time. So you worked at the bank, and what were your duties?
You mean when I did my internship, I was in the bookkeeping department.
Okay. And that's when the bank, there were 2 banks in one. Pemigewasset Savings and Guarantee.
Plymouth Guarantee and the Pemigewasset National. When it was at Wolfson's,
Can you do that? I just know that we've interviewed a couple other folks. Who would they be? Phyllis Holbrook came to
well,
one.
when I came back to Plymouth after going away to teach, I worked in the new building, and that was definitely Plymouth Guarantee on one side and Pemigewasset on the other.
I think the other women, Phyllis and Mary Durgan, said they were in the 2 separate banks in Wolfson's. Then when it moved over there, it was 2 separate banks. And because they had different functions, they got along.
Yeah. Well, see, the savings bank did savings accounts and mortgages. The National Bank did checking accounts and automobile loans and collateral loans.
Perfect.
So they didn't clash at all.
Not at all. Not at
Right.
all. Oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
That's neat. All right. And then other jobs you may have had?
No, I think my work at the farm kitchen and, you mean, but after I got out of school? You mean, oh,
Sure.
okay, I went teaching. I taught 3 years in Meredith,
Nice.
and I taught 1 year in Exeter.
What levels?
High school, business education, typing, shorthand, bookkeeping. And then I came back and went to work at the Plymouth Guarantee for Ken Bartlett. And I worked there for 4 years with Phyllis Holbrook. And then I left there and went to Waterville Valley as the secretary to Tommy Corcoran, who was developing the valley. And I worked for Tommy for 4 years during the construction phase and that getting up. And then I was town manager in Waterville for 18 years. So I've had a
And then
wide
eclectic-
spectrum.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. What was it like being at Waterville Valley? Starting it up.
Well, it was very
You're smiling.
consuming. I've known the valley, you know, when it was the Waterville Inn and the 20 cottages, and then Mr. Corcoran came in and blew that kind of out of the water by developing the valley. But he did a very good job, and he had a knack about him of bringing people together.
Oh, that's great.
So, and I remember the night the inn burned, there was quite a bit of pull of the old-time cottage owners and the new development. And the inn burned, and that night he called on the cottage owners to take in the guests. And it seemed to meld, that whole thing just seemed to meld the valley.
Wow.
And they began to pull together. But it was quite an experience to watch it all come together.
That's neat. You may have one of the few perspectives of what happened there. That's a book.
Yeah.
That's, I'm just thinking, that's a book. We're going to move on and talk about some just topics, and you can pass on anything that you want, and hopefully some stories will come to mind. Now, first one's a heavy. Just thinking about your time in Campton, what comes to mind? You're a child, you're a young adult.
Oh, I think that just that it was a community, and everybody, I mean, at that point it was very small. We knew everybody, and everybody knew us. And there were all kinds of activities that were community related, you know. They had a baseball team. The guys that came back from World War II, I mean, they had uniforms and everything. And they played Warren and Wentworth and Rumney, you know, in Ashland, and it was a Sunday afternoon thing, was to go to the baseball games. And then the fire department always put on a minstrel show, which is kind of a no-no now, but at that point it ran for several nights. And, you know, everybody in the fire department and in the community that had any talent took part in it. We always had a Christmas pageant that the grade school put on, and again, everybody was a part of it. It was held in the church. The Catholics were a part of it, and then we had a big community Christmas tree. So it was always a community, you know.
Was it because it was so small, or was it the type of events that were held, or people so enjoyed getting together?
I think everybody seemed to get along. I remember playing kick the can in the evening, and all these adults would come to play kick the can with us, you know. And we had a boat on Campton Pond. At that point it was Campton Pond, and we spent hours in that boat. And then at night, for our bath, we'd run across the street, jump off the dam, go for a swim, and
funny.
come home.
That's cute.
You know,
That's really cute.
where else could you do that for your Saturday night bath?
That's awesome.
So it was, you know, and when we got up in the morning, we had chores to do. We had to weed the garden. We had to wash windows if they had to be. We had to keep our rooms clean, mow the lawn. But as soon as chores were done, we were free, and we could go out on the pond. We could go back in the woods, and we were always outdoors. You don't see that now at all.
I think that's a really good point.
Unless it's organized. And we had to organize our own things.
Wow.
And it was a delightful childhood, I think.
It sounds it.
And people, you always felt free to go ask people for help. And I remember my brother bought an old house, and I was running through the basement, and there was a nail sticking out, and I ripped my knee open. My mom was gone, so where did I go? Up to the village store, and Mrs. Estabrook took me home, washed it out, bandaged it, took care of it, sent me home. If our bicycles broke, we'd go up to Howard McKinnon's garage, and he'd drop everything and fix them. You know, so everybody looked out for everybody else.
Is Howard McKinnon, is he related to Donnie McKinnon? Can you do that?
Yes, I think he would be an uncle. I think he would be old enough to be Donnie's uncle. Yeah.
Interesting, interesting.
Yeah.
It sounds like a fun, enjoyable, active childhood.
Yeah.
I think you might be right, the comment that everything today seems to be so organized, and yet you had to organize yourselves, and you had such fun activities that you were,
Yeah.
that's neat, very much so. Thank you for doing that. Another one, families and friends, events. Is there a special birthday, a wedding? It could even be a little sad, a death that has still stayed in your mind after all this time.
No, this didn't happen in Campton, but I know when my brother was married, we went by car to Missouri, which was quite an event, you know, and we stopped in Washington, D.C. on the way. So we got a tour. We were just, I mean, I was, I think, 9. So we got a tour of Washington, D.C., and then on to Missouri. And then certainly the family parties. I remember we always had, and I can't remember whether it was 4th of July or Uncle Rat and Aunt Grace's wedding anniversary. We always had a party at the Eddy, a cookout, and that's when they had bathhouses and shelters at the Eddy. And so the whole family, not just my immediate family, but all the brothers and sisters, you know, would come. And we'd have watermelon, and I always remember that, because my mother was a cantaloupe person. We didn't get a lot of watermelon, but we always had watermelon, pies, and baked beans.
That's
you know.
neat. That's neat. How many people? Can you guess?
Probably 30. You know, 25 or 30.
Great opportunity to everybody to get together and share
Yeah.
stories. That's
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Beautiful. What changes have you seen in the area? It could be Plymouth, it can be Campton, it could be Thornton, but what changes have you seen over the last several decades?
Oh, I think the biggest change are the highways. I mean, people just pouring in. And even in Campton, where they put Route 49 along the side of the pond, I mean, they kind of ruined the flow of the pond. And, you know, it took the traffic out of Campton Village, but boy, it's there now. I mean, we used to play tennis in front of our house in the road, you know, and nobody'd come by, and if they did, they were locals and they'd stop and we'd get out of the way. Now you can't even cross the street, you know. It's there's so much traffic. It's
well, we have numbers of people that are coming in.
Yeah.
It could be their second home, seasonally. Winter for skiing, beautiful weather for the fall and summer, and I don't know what happens during the spring, whether or not people come for that or not. Yeah, you're right. We have a lot more traffic.
Yeah.
A lot more traffic.
I think that's the biggest change. And
well, it's a beautiful state, and people want to come.
yeah.
Don't blame them. Don't blame them on that one. Local town. Who are the people that you can remember that may have influenced you, affected you from your locality? Someone could have been a mentor, somebody that you worked for.
Well, I think probably as a child, Raymond and Grace Bean would be somebody that made an impact. He was the minister, and they made religion a little bit of fun, you know. Nice. It wasn't all drudgery. And they used to organize, we'd have skating parties on the pond and cookouts with hot dogs and marshmallows. And they were very good with the kids. And that's great. So I would think that and then of course I've mentioned Mr. Keach and Mr. Judge Ernst and those people. So
okay, good ones, good ones. Your father, I think, your brother, I'm not sure of, you have to help me a little bit. They're affiliated with Dole's Mills. Can we talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, I'm going to get some notes out because I can tell you a little bit more then, because I don't. Well, first of all, that's a sweater.
Oh. I remember someone saying they didn't make sweaters, and I didn't want to dispute them, so I am so glad you're here. They did make sweaters.
Heavy sweaters.
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely.
And these are socks.
Okay. So these are a few of the products that were made there.
Right, and these are socks. And I remember getting these for Christmas every year.
I wonder why.
And this is a little hammer. And we have pictures of my older brother and sister, you know, skiing, and they always had these on their heads.
Wow.
They made those.
And all of these were produced in-house in the factory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, I have here,
Okay.
this says, all wool sports center sweaters, $2.85.
Alrighty.
And this is
$2.85.
what they made. Sweaters, coat sweater, wool sweaters, sleeveless, camp shorts, trunks, camp socks.
A variety.
And they made, of course, the famous Campton pants
Absolutely.
that were made of 32-ounce wool
Mm-hmm.
that the lumberjacks bought and wore.
Wow. Wow.
And
Dole and Company, it's
and it
called.
was founded in 1826.
1826.
And it was, at that point, a carding mill. You know, they just worked the wool. And in 1840, my great-grandfather would have joined the company.
Father
And-
of Moody Dole. So this is Erastus. Is my saying that correctly? Erastus Dole. I love it. Can't help it.
My great-grandfather.
Uh-huh.
And also in the area, there was a grist mill and a lumber mill and a slaughterhouse. So it was a little community of mills.
You had a major industry there, there's no
Right.
doubt about it,
Yeah,
but you
right.
needed the support system
Yeah,
of all those other mills
Yeah.
going on.
yeah.
That's neat.
And they also supplied the electricity to the town. They had a dam and a dynamo.
Mhm.
And in the early 1900s, they powered the town of Campton. And the story is, and I don't know if it's true, but that they used to shut the electricity off at midnight, and the town went black. You know, nobody had any electricity. I don't know if that's true, Louise, but that's what's always come down. And then they sold in the 1940s to public service. But my house and the house across the street and Uncle Rat's house was still powered by Dole's mill. So we'd have power when public service went out.
Wow.
We'd still have power.
So when I drive by there today, by the dam, prior to the dam, left-hand side, there's a building there.
A big red
It's
mill.
a
Yeah.
multi-use building right now, which is exciting because I think there was a short time that it was down, vacant.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. All
Mhm.
right.
There's a picture of the mill
Oh, neat.
from the south end.
And the brochure itself, I mean, Mad River Knit Goods,
Yeah.
Campton, New Hampshire. So there's a picture, it may be a little bit difficult to see, but definitely the factory is there, right off the water. And that's important for
And the
industry.
building across the street was a store where they sold. And my dad was responsible for the marketing.
Who's your dad, for the audience?
Roland Tom.
Thank you.
And I can remember going on trips where he'd go. We went to Bangor, Maine, which was quite a haul, and they sold to L.L. Bean, and he would go, and Draper Maynard, of course,
Of
was
course.
a big buyer
Sure.
in Plymouth.
That was devastating when Draper and Maynard went down.
Went out of Plymouth. That's one of my things. I said that was one of the big things that Plymouth lost,
Mm-hmm.
because
Huge.
nobody else bought Babe Ruth in.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So
I'm excited, just the little advertising that's on this. So this is a sweater, and it's indicating that their sweaters or their items could be used for multi-use sports,
yeah,
volleyball, fishing.
I don't know why
I don't
you'd
know what
ever
I'm
want to
doing.
wear that sweater in volleyball, but
Me neither, but the point was well taken. Yeah, and it says right on the insert, Dole and Company?
mm-hmm.
You can read better than I can.
Dole and Company.
Dole, thank you.
Yeah.
Erasmus. Oh,
Yeah.
that's neat. That's neat. How long did the company run for then?
It closed in 1965. In 1946, right after the war, Erastus, my uncle Erastus, not that Erastus, son went in, took it over, and he kind of discontinued the marketing, and so they went into just doing carpet yarns.
Mm. Okay.
and then it closed in '65.
And go backwards, when was it started again?
Well, it was started in 1826 by a Moses Cook, who was some relative out there in the. And then in 1840, his 3 nephews went into it, and one of those nephews was Erastus Dole.
There we go, the connection.
Yeah.
100 years old plus. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing industry. And how many people would it have employed?
Oh, I don't know. I had a picture somewhere of probably, I would think, 50 or 60.
That's large for that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what interests me a lot in smaller towns, that you can have what we call major industries taking place. You have Draper to Maynard over here housing many employees. You've got Dole a very quick distance away. And I don't know if I should say it. I read one of the pieces of information. I think Draper to Maynard may have fudged on this one, but they said they own the Dole company. And I know in my writings I had to say that's an untruth. They worked with them.
No, they worked with them. I don't know.
No.
Not that I'm aware that
No,
they
it was a
ever.
little tiny one, and sometimes they would fudge, I think, on that one.
So.
All right, so 1964, 65, you said they closed down, closed house.
Yeah.
And did the building itself remain vacant for a while? Or did something else go in there?
No, it was vacant for quite a while.
Quite a while. No, but it's exciting to drive by today and see it being used.
And I think they're doing pretty well.
Good.
I don't know.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 3 or 4 that they advertise on the outside marquees, so it's good. It's good. Thank you for doing that. All right. A person in your family or town that influenced you as a child or as you were growing up?
Oh, I think it has to be my mom. She raised 4 kids, and and she was always a very positive disciplinarian, And I remember one time, I don't know what I said, but we had a couple that lived in town, and he was disabled, and he was a cobbler, and when he was in his shop, he kind of hitched around on the floor because he couldn't walk, and his wife, they had gas pumps outside, and they pumped gas, so they were doing everything to, and I don't know what I said about Harvey, but I said something that wasn't, and my mother sat me down and told me that, he was born that way, and to get where he got, he'd done a lot more than I'd ever have to do. And then she said, and by the way, Sally, your job from now on is to go up and get the Sunday paper, buy the Sunday paper. Well, you know where I had to go, to Harvey's cobbler shop, which I wasn't very happy about, but I found out that Mr. Gilman was a very nice man, and we had good conversations.
Nice.
But that's pretty. And then my next door neighbor was perhaps the first liberal woman that I ever knew. She was divorced and raising a son, and she used to mow her lawn and make her window boxes, paint her house, do her slipcovers. She just did everything, and she was the first woman that I ever knew that was that independent. And she used to let me help her, which I'm sure was a nuisance, but I used to go down and help Dolores.
But you don't think your mom was independent?
No, but she never did anything like that.
Like that.
You
All right.
know,
Specific jobs.
she didn't.
All right.
She couldn't wield a hammer,
Okay.
and Dolores could. But no, she was. She was. But this was just a completely different.
That's great.
But so she was probably another person I looked up to.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. I always try to ask about a food in the area. Is there something that you've enjoyed over time? It could be a restaurant, it could be something at home, but something you've enjoyed.
Well, in Campton, we only had a couple of very small, but I'll tell you what I remember is a Cushman delivery truck. You remember Cushman? With his cookies and cakes? And he came every Friday night, and he came out of Meredith, and of course at that time, the Pemmy League was Lincoln, Plymouth, Ashland, Bristol, Meredith, and that's what they played in basketball, and baseball was within those towns. And Ken Lang was a Meredith man, So he and my brother would have long conversations about the strength and weaknesses of the different ball clubs. But I remember Cushman's coming. And then, you know what I remember in Plymouth? The hot nut machines. Did your folks have a hot nut machine in their store?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember they did.
Smell.
McCrillis did.
McCrillis. Oh my
and,
gosh.
And York's.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that. And then the other thing I remember is Open Gate.
Oh, the inn?
No, it was a restaurant.
Gate restaurant. Open Gate Restaurant. Where was it located?
It was up on Highland Street. And I think where there's now a block of commercial businesses there. You know where Guinan's lived?
Yes.
Across the street.
Across the street.
Down a little bit.
No, I'm there. I'm there. I'm trying to remember who owned that.
Thompson.
Maybe. And yet there was the Open Gate, but there was something after that. Another restaurant came to be, and I remember going there with Dad and Mom once. Whoops.
I don't remember that. I just remember, and you know, and that was a 3-course meal, so it was. My mother used to like to go there, and so I remember the
Special
Open
place.
Gate. Yeah, it was more.
That's neat.
Yeah,
That's neat.
yeah.
Any family members that were associated in the military may have gone to war?
Well, World War II, I had my brother John was in, and then my sister's fiance was in, and Johnny Hibbard was in the Pacific Theater, and he saw a lot. He flew he was in the Air Force, and he was a navigator in one of the big bombers. And Johnny Dole had asthma, so he never left the United States. And I remember the feeling, I don't want to say tension, but the feeling for Johnny Hibbard's safety and for Johnny Dole's safety was different, and I didn't really understand why at that point, but one was in active service, so I remember that.
Wow. Not knowing. I don't know what parents must have gone through, or relatives not knowing if their child was going to come home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Okay, what do we
it's
have?
kind of.
We talked about the industries and some of the stores in the area. We've had a few that have come and gone. The big one that people always talk about for Plymouth area is Newberry's.
Yeah.
Do you remember Newberry's, the Five and Dime?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And now it's going to be occupied again, finally.
Oh really?
Yeah, so it's exciting to see something happening. If you
What's
drive
going
by,
to go in there?
I think there'll be a potpourri of things, so we'll have to wait and see.
Oh.
They're asking what you would like to see here. But when we talk about the memories of Plymouth, some can say, oh, I remember I'm having my lunch there, or I'm going downstairs, or I'm buying notions upstairs.
With Mandy Logan.
Oh, there we go. That's right. That is right. That is right. So that's kind of neat.
No,
Yeah.
I guess I would always remember Mrs. Walker-Shawton.
Great.
You know.
Yep.
And then I think the biggest thing that left was Draper Meenan.
As far as supporting the town, the number of employees at home and in there, you're correct. It's the largest employer we've ever had in this town. It's pretty amazing. Again, small little town, and what a major impact it had in the sporting industry for quite some time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you were affiliated with that, your family, which is neat.
Yeah.
What was the most exciting day in your life? That's a heavy. I'm not sure if I've asked that of my folks before, but is there something that stands out, and we can pass on that?
Well, certainly you have to say my wedding day.
Okay.
And another one I remember as really stressful is as I say, I love sports, and I played a lot of basketball. And we were playing in a tournament, and I was taking my driver's test for a license on the same day. That was pretty stressful.
That's stressful. That's a good one. That is a good one.
I don't remember, so.
Conversely, was there a sad day in your life that you're willing to share? We can pass.
Well, I think my grandmother lived with us. Her Grandpa Lovett died, and I don't remember him, so and she lived with us. And I think that's the first death where I was old enough. I mean, I didn't comprehend Daddy's death at all. To realize what had happened when she died. And I was in second year of college then, so I was old enough to really know.
And you had a lot of memories.
Yeah.
A lot of memories there.
Yeah.
I can understand that.
With her lima beans.
Lima beans.
Do you remember veg oil? Can in the war, we had cans of vegetables, all a variety, and they had lima beans in them. And I hated lima beans.
Oh, okay.
And she'd heat them up, and I'd always get at least 2 lima beans on my plate, which I had to eat.
Oh, you don't get any more.
Right.
I'm sorry I missed that one, but I do know if we didn't eat what was given to us, you didn't get anything else.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Time is a little bit getting closer. Have we forgotten a story that we should share with our audience today? Anything else that you might want to share? I have one other question for you, but...
No, I think that one of the things I remember during the World War was that when we came in from noon hour, my mother always either read poems or short stories to the whole group, to kind of calm us down.
Yep.
And during the period of the war, we had to learn our patriotic songs, and we sang those.
Oh, wow.
And we had to stand up and sing, the Anchors Away, Over There, all those songs, which was kind of a neat thing. And then I remember about the war was Mrs. Estabrook, who owned the grocery store. There was a sand pit up in back of the grocery store, and we always made sure that we were up there playing on Tuesday morning, because that's when the produce truck came in, and if she got an ample supply, she'd bring a banana out to us, which was a big deal. We didn't get them very often. So remember that.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
This is a question I ask of everybody near the end. I said, if you had a group of young people around you, what advice, what might you share with them that you've learned from the years of living and events that have taken place during your lifetime? What advice might you give them?
I think my advice would be to listen to the older generation, have discussions, and respect the older generation, because they've been down this road and they've got a lot more experience than a lot of the older generation now. But at that point, they had, a lot of experience. And then I think the other thing I would say was to be thankful for what you have and to build on that, not wish that you had something else, that life had dealt you something else. You've got to deal with what you have in front of you, and that's important, I think.
Good advice. Good advice. Thank you for that. We're done.
Okay.
That went by really fast. Really, really fast. Thank you, Sally, seriously, for coming in, bringing evidence of your family's business, which had some stories to go along with it.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Want to share a couple more? Do you have
Well,
something?
I had this picture of the pond.
All right.
Which I
This is
thought was-
Campton Pond.
Yeah.
Good.
With logs. Yeah.
That were milled. And, oh my gosh, I love this picture.
You've seen
Livermore.
that?
Oh, I love it. I hope it's trying to get my board to think about this as a future puzzle. I've seen one just like this, and I've seen one where there's a series of buildings down below.
Yeah.
Down below. It's black and white, so I'm getting voted down, but I assume someday I might win.
Yeah.
We're talking about that
Yeah.
right now. Yeah.
So that I can remember going over that, because when we came to Plymouth, if we came down the east side of the river, that's the way you got across. It made an awful lot of noise.
Wow. Wow. Thank
So-
you again.
Okay.
And to our audience today, thank you for joining us. It's for me, and I think there's a few of you out there that think it's very much fun to chat away and think about the memories that we have of times past. I think that's important, talking about times past in order for us to move to the future. So we'll see you next month. September 1st, I think, is the next time we're doing an interview here, and that person is going to receive a medal if he's watching now, because he's coming from far. He'll be coming from Texas to visit us and share his story, how he is connected to the town of Plymouth. So until next time, thank you, everyone.